excited to have all our experts. We will talk today about digital marketing trends. I'm not sure how long exactly we should wait for everybody to join, but let's give them at least two minutes to finish their coffee, their meetings, emails, and get ready for exactly, and get ready for this 1 hour. This is actually not a lot to talk about the digital marketing trends of the whole 2023, but I'm pretty sure we will manage. Let me just shortly introduce first myself. I'm Justyna Dzikowska from Brand24, head of marketing, who had the pleasure to prepare with our marketing team, of course, a report on the top marketing influencers for this year. And that's how we met all those lovely people that we have here. Thank you guys for joining me. I wanted to have a brief round on who we have today because we have Jeff Barret, the PR expert. Jeff has his own agency. He's also a top 50, yes, by Forbes in social media. Yeah, that's that's something I forgot to mention before we started. Please turn on your mobile phones for the flight we'll have here. But no, getting back to Jeff. Jeff is the CEO of the Status Creative Agency and the PR expert. Forbes top 50 in social media. Jeff, would you like to add something?
No, that sounds wonderful. I like all of those things. Happy to be here. I love that you go into a conversation about digital marketing trends. It's a very large expanse. So I have a few ideas, but we'll just go where it goes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We also have Rebekah Radice, founder of Rebekah Radice Media and Brill LA agency. Rebekah, you have over 20 years of experience in marketing. That's incredible. Would you like to add some other projects that I didn't mention? Because there are lots of them.
Yeah, kind of like Jeff said, there's always a little bit going on in the digital marketing world, right? But yes, and I'm very excited that Bria, I am a co-founder with one of my dearest friends, and today we are beta launching a brand new project called Hey Rebekah, heyrebekah.com, which is kind of that culmination you talked about of 20 years worth of experience. And I want to say bazillion questions I've been asked over the lifetime of my career, and taken all of those and distilling them into a 6-minute a day newsletter. So really excited about that and excited to be here.
Thank you. Just a quick check, because some people told me that they can't hear Jeff. Is that solved? Jeff, can you say something so we can check if people can hear you properly?
Something, anything.
I can hear him loud and clear.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Happy that works. And we also have Martin Jones. Martin is an expert in enterprise marketing, banking, finance, and educational sector, something that I personally find very difficult to market. Martin also have huge experience in marketing. And right now, what do you focus right now on, Martin? Tell us.
So right now I've been focusing on our enterprise space there with Cox Business, and so a number of verticals, including education, government, marketing, social media. We also deal across the hospitality sector, so quite a few different areas right now where we're managing the social media for Cox Business and also producing content.
Great. Okay, some people tell me that they still didn't hear Jeff, but I can see your mic on, and other people can hear you. So I think this is not the technical issue on our side, I'm afraid. Yeah, the icon is on. So I hope
I can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you too. So I hope this is just I don't know, maybe the internet broke up for a moment for someone, but many people also can hear you. So I think that's perfect. That works. Just a quick, maybe few rules for this meeting. We will have different questions. Some will be asked to particular person. Some will be asked to everyone, like whoever will feel like they know the answer. Guys, please raise your hands or suggest in any other way that you can take this on you. You can ask questions. Our lovely audience here can ask questions like on the go. If you will feel like something is very relevant to what our expert is talking right now, please write down your question. I cannot promise we will answer all of them during this 1 hour because it's not that much time, but we will try to. Definitely, I would try to moderate it in a way so we can include also your input to this conversation. And in the end, if we will have at least 5 minutes left after all of the questions that I have for you and that we will catch on the way, we will save some time for Q&A. So whatever you will have that won't be included in the conversation, you can also write it up once again in the end, and we will have a nice discussion with all of you from all the world. I think I looked at the names of people who registered, and we are like totally global with the regions and languages we have here. I believe we're all comfortable with English. So I'm very happy that we managed to gather such an international club here. Thank you, guys. And I wanted to give you a warm-up question. Since we will be closing 2020, I'm sure you tested different things, platforms, tools, trends that were happening this year. I wanted to ask all of you if you had something that was your favorite that you really believe will develop next year and you think that it was like a healthy thing to happen in marketing. Was there something like that for you? We can start with Jeff so we see if his mic is working.
I will always defer because I will be like, okay, I would like to go second or third because there can be a chair box, which is ironic if you can't hear my microphone. Whatnot, social selling online, basically the ability to sell while you're in a live stream. I think we're heading toward an area of the internet, 2007 to 2022, where it's a lot about user acquisition. So you're going to see a lot of other legacy platforms, whether it's social media or other things that have grown, that will turn into more about trying to create revenue rather than user acquisition. But the one space where they're still trying to acquire users and there's a lot of growth will be Whatnot. If you're a listener across the globe in other regions, you probably are already well aware of social selling, but in the United States, we haven't done that a lot embedded into something, whether it's Twitch or any type of live streaming. So the ability to sell something in live streaming, I think Whatnot has a good opportunity to kind of close on that market there.
True. Thank
I would
you,
agree, Jeff. We've seen the same thing with social selling. Shortly after the pandemic, we launched LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And brought several of our reps on board. That's just continued to grow throughout the year with more and more people wanting to get on board with that. And then also not only providing them the tools, but also teaching them how to social sell, how to prospect, how to discover intent, how to communicate, start to set a cadence with content, understanding you're probably not going to convert somebody on the first conversation or the first social media chat you enter into them. So really how to use content in that context. And on the social platforms to create a cadence, to create a conversation, and create continued engagement over time.
Totally. Rebekah, would you like to add something?
Yeah, for me, and it kind of goes right along with what both Jeff and Martin are talking about here, which is customer experience. And business is really recognizing that you're no longer just a business or a brand on social media or in any of your marketing. You've really got to learn how to engage, how to interact, how to get into the conversation. And all of that comes back to what Martin just mentioned, which is really understanding the true intent of your customer, of your audience, of understanding what type of content they want. And we saw a lot of years over on social media platforms where we were just pumping out content for the sake of pumping out content. It was that more. And I believe we saw us coming back to a scenario where we were creating the right content for the right people. And not only that, I saw a big pushback too on the idea that you have to be everywhere. We were really figuring out that there are the right places to show up, and those right places are where our audience is spending their time. So it's exciting to me to see that this has really gained traction, and the idea of, TikToking the customer experience, of engaging that audience in the conversation, and doing it in a fun, maybe witty way, whatever your brand personality might be, it isn't a negative anymore. We can inject who we are into that brand personality and not be afraid to do that. And I really see that as something we leaned into heavily in 2022, and it's going to take us straight into 2023.
Yeah, I also love that. I don't know when did that happen, that as brands we can be natural and like more human. That's great. I think it's actually improving the contact with the customers. Like being professional is not about being like super fake anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
Can I mention
that's
one
a
more
good
thing?
way to put it.
Can I mention one thing, going back to the intent that you mentioned also, Rebekah, is I think one of the things that's important is a couple of years ago, we were all looking for volume, driving volume to our blogs and our websites. The more people you can get, the better. And I think as we've started to discover how much more important intent is and having the right people arrive at those destinations, is that you can now write about things that maybe don't have 10,000 people a month conducting a search on Google for them, but you're writing the right type of content for specific niches. And we write for a number of small niches that, are not going to get a ton of searches on Google, but very specific people with very specific intent are looking for information on those topics. And so by writing that content and putting that out there, it drives a lot of traffic, and more of the traffic that we're looking for.
Yeah. And the creator economy is going over to Substack and places behind paywalls too, because they know if they've got even 100 to 1,000 dedicated people who want to view their content rather than trying to put it out to the masses, that's a better monetization angle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think next year, like from all of the reports, all of the trends and statistics we dig through, we choose 3 trends that are very visible right now, have been visible for the last few years, but are like super fast to develop. And I wanted to discuss them with you today. And it's AI, communities, and short videos. I know it's not a really name of a trend, but it's something we can observe that it's more and more present in marketing. And I wanted to start with AI. And I wanted to ask you, Rebekah, is there any particular tool, brand, or way that you already use it and trust it, and in terms of automation or delegating some actions that you used to do on your own and now you delegate them to AI? Is there anything like that?
Oh, there's a lot of it. I think AI has pretty much touched every aspect of marketing, digital marketing at this point. Everything from personalization, which I think we all feel very strongly about here, just in these first few minutes listening to what everybody's talking about, and creating that personalized experience. So I think we know a lot about chatbots. We could certainly use chatbots to create those personalized messages. When somebody's coming to your website, when they're interacting with your content, being able to not just do that general broad, welcome that we were doing several years ago, but really getting down into the nitty gritty of who are these people that are visiting, what are their needs, what are they looking for, and how best can I provide that content and that information. There's, ways that we can use AI in retargeting, of course, with GPT-3, and all of the different ways that we've got with content creation. I think that's a huge topic in and of itself. I don't know that we're all there yet, but it's something that we've definitely been playing around with on our end just to get a feel for, what's the capability, what's the capacity to take a little bit, and I think this is what you were alluding to, take a little bit off of our plates so that we can focus on what's most important within our businesses right now. And so for me, AI is really exactly that. How can we improve our processes? How can we improve our workflows? How can we simplify what we're doing, maybe some of the heavy lifting, even down to just our internal communications, creating simple ways that we can, trigger when a project is done, that we can notify a team member that we've, completed our piece and we're passing on that next stage of the project. So really, to me, AI, the sky is the limit and how we can use it. I think we've got to be very careful, as I started to talk about with content, that as a brand, as a, maybe just a marketing professional, you're not losing your voice, you're not losing your tone, you're not losing your personality, you're not losing that personalized touch, but that you are using it, you're leveraging it to help you move maybe a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, get some things done that might have bogged you down before, kept you, in the weeds, so to speak, instead of allowing you to be in that more creative space or sales focused, like we all need to be.
Definitely. And Jeff, you're focusing more on PR. Do you feel like AI is taking the human part from public relation, or it's actually improving the personalization aspects and making your life easier? Because I know with public relations it's more relation based, so I often heard that PR people see AI as a threat.
Definitely not a threat. Also, when you mentioned, do you know of a brand or a place that you can highlight? That's like telling me to say which one of my children are my favorite, which is a very bad idea. So I will not do that. But no, I've done panels on AI. I had to spend time in New York one time. I did like an 8-hour interview session, and then people were like, "Are you an AI expert?" No, I'm like, "No, I just flew in, talked about it for 8 hours. Not an expert at all. Please do not." So no, I'm not an expert in that, but I've done marketing projects with other companies, whether it was utilizing AI to do something as simple and silly as predict who would win the NCAA tournament, American college basketball. But it was designed to actually drive, signups and actual sales conversion to a company. And it drove $40 million worth of sales just because people wanted to use the tool. I think, to get to the point of your question, I think there's a balance between being human, as we discussed a little bit earlier, and Rebekah was alluding to in the previous question. I think there's this need to be human. There's also this need to have efficiency and target. And the interesting thing is, because of how we're marketing, right, I think we're actually getting more and more targeted. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, because what we're doing is, by getting more targeted, we're cutting out inefficiencies in how we try and reach people, right? We're not trying to reach people with an infomercial. We're not trying to reach people with maybe direct marketing or M2M. So some things about targeting are great. What I would say about AI is it's bias in, bias out. That's probably the most commonly used term in the industry. Your assumptions that you put into your AI will yield the result that you assume. So, no, on the PR side, no, it somewhat touches what we do. It sometimes doesn't touch what we do. We can't use it specifically in some of the different ways that marketing does. But do I view it as a threat? No, because I believe our industry, even though they're related, they still can kind of exist in separate parts. I'll leave you with this example too. We're actually working on an app in sports betting that's working on EV, or expected value, where we're utilizing AI to determine inefficiencies in markets where the betting line isn't exactly online with what the past performance was in like the last 10 performances for a team. But there's like a lot of very minute things you can do with AI that are super fun. And I think, honestly, to end that question, never view anything as a threat, view it as an opportunity, and try and find ways to use it, rather, because I think when you start viewing anything like Snapchat or TikTok or whatnot, or all these things that come around. If you start viewing things as threats, you stop being a good marketer.
I like that angle. Definitely. We have a question from the audience. Any tools based on AI that you can recommend? I can start with Brand24. Sorry for that. I know probably all of you know the tool already, but you also may know that we are testing AI and developing new features in Brand24 thanks to machine learning mainly. So it's the one I can tell. I have some other shoots, but I don't want to take the space. Would you like to recommend some tool or platform, guys?
I would mention, Rebekah mentioned it real briefly, but GPT-3 is, I think people are going to look back 5 years from now and say this was the tool that changed a lot of what we do in marketing, and automated a lot of the flows. We're using it in some ways now that are kind of interesting. We've tested out with actually using it for we create a lot of different articles and content, so using it in creating recipes for writing briefs, which has kind of streamlined that process to get those writing briefs out quicker and more detailed to our writers. So it's helped out really well there. Going out and looking at some of our older content that might be 5 or 6 years old and saying, can we refresh this? How can we refresh this? And running some of the articles through the playground, coming up with ways that we wouldn't have thought of for refreshing that content. And then also being able to play around and just work in the playground, taking some of our own content that we've written or some of our writers have written, plugging that in and looking for how can we write more concise blog posts that match up with that article or something of that nature, but in their same style and their same flow. So I think there's a lot, and it seems like every time GPT-3 comes out with a new update, it's amazing how quickly and how fast it's moving forward.
Yeah, I can see our audience already know this tool. Thanks for mentioning that. And I don't want to stay too long with AI because we have two incredibly interesting areas to go. And Martin, I actually wanted to ask you about our next area, which is short videos and the development, the TikTokization of the media marketing sphere. You're focusing on enterprise level. So can you say that this is visible there as well, as strong as in B2C and e-commerce sphere, let's say?
Absolutely. I came from a background, in my previous role here with our company, I was focused on startups and small business. But I would say that short form videos play across the spectrum. Attention spans are very short right now. So trying to capture attention quickly and give enough information to get people to make a decision to look further or visit your website and such is getting more challenging. So short form videos can just continue to grow. It seems like every year, probably for the last 4 or 5 years, people say, oh, well, the short form videos, they're probably going to start slowing down this year. They're going to phase out into other things. And they don't seem to be doing that at all. They just continue to seem to grow. We see, still the best response is for short form videos, 6 to 15 seconds that we're trying to drive traffic. And that continues to stay very level. So.
Yeah, it does. I'm wondering about the industries like fintech, education, banking in general. Like, can we create a content that is educational and entertaining for clients at this level? Like, can we create a legal content with a funny video? This is, I think, the biggest challenge for the companies right now, to play with the format, but not with the content.
I think it kind of depends on what you're terming maybe a short form video, because we're looking at that as being those very short videos, 6 to 15 seconds. But we found for example, for a 30 to 90 second explainer video, we're able to get across very complex topics or subjects with a lot of information that we need to put out in a short period of time to explain something. And we're able to use explainer videos to do that quite effectively.
Mm-hmm. And do you see any platforms that may get popular next year and we should definitely test them? I know that Be Real was a thing, still is a thing. I think it will develop, but it's not that popular yet as some people expected. Do you see any platforms that will probably grow as fast in the upcoming year? This is the question to all.
A few years ago, I hate to guess on any platforms.
Rebekah, Jeff? Any predictions?
On platforms itself or on video? Just
on platform,
in general?
On platforms.
I really believe, and this kind of goes back to video, that we have become a video first content. We are in that situation where not only are we video first ourselves, where we are choosing to get our entertainment, to get our news, to get our info from video, because again, goes back to what Martin was saying. We've got those short attention spans, but we have a huge consumption still of content just in that video content. So for me, I believe we're going to continue to see a big push towards YouTube, because it's an easy way for businesses, for even small say entrepreneurs that are looking to create that personalized experience, that content. You can create, say, one YouTube video that you could turn into, 20, 30 additional different videos for all of those different social platforms. So again, I think we're in an exciting time where we are pulling back a little bit on the need to just pump out a lot of content. But an exciting time in the sense that we have this huge opportunity to interact and engage with our audience in real time on, in places like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube now with shorts. So just a lot of opportunity. As far as new and emerging, we have so many out there with social channels. It's tough to say if any of them are going to gain traction, but who saw Twitter blowing up this year? So who knows?
Yeah, I
anything
agree.
anything is possible. But again, I always go back to the basics and sticking with what works, and creating a conversation where your audience is spending time, where your audience is hanging out, letting them see you face to face, letting them hear you, letting them really get to know you. Video is such a terrific medium for that. And I think for a lot of people, or a lot of brands that are afraid to put themselves on video or to put themselves out there's so many different ways that you can still use video and create video, which I think is another mental hurdle where we think it's got to be difficult. And there's so many tools out there that just make it very, very simple. And I think very easy for us to create videos across the board as well. So I think that is going to continue to lead and guide us into 2023.
Oh.
I'll try and give you the 90-second version because there's a lot of thoughts in my head. Rebekah, you absolutely led right into YouTube Shorts, because I think from an enterprise level and a brand level, the ability to bring people in with shorts and lead them to longer form video is much more helpful than with TikTok, right? If I'm using TikTok, I'm tapping into the creator community and using that more that way rather than coming off as a brand. TikTok and that model is wonderful because the simple change of just mindlessly clicking through and never having to seek anything out, it finds you, is wonderful, right? But from a brand standpoint, I would love to use YouTube Shorts, so I think we'll still grow because it's a used platform, and lead somebody into that 30, 60, 90-second video. But it's interesting that the space to exist in content is either basically 60 seconds or less, or an 80-minute podcast, or a Spaces, or long form audio or live streaming, right? There's no value in the middle. So really, that's the interesting thing about where you can go. I don't just think about short-term video. I just think about long-term audio, short-term video.
Yeah, and I love what you mentioned there, because we're definitely seeing that shift, aren't we? Back.
We lost you, Rebekah, for a moment. Your mic is muted.
It is.
Yeah, I think you clicked accidentally on the mic.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, it's
Did
back.
somebody mute me? Did you mute me? I'm teasing you. I don't know where I got cut off, but I was just mentioning, Jeff, you had talked about the conversion path, and that is such a great point of how we are utilizing maybe a long form podcast or long form video on YouTube. but using something like shorts to create that attention, that awareness, to really keep people their attention span held, but then drive them over to that podcast or that newsletter or whatever that location is for us. Because as much as we would like to believe that these different channels are always going to be available to us, we just never know. And so I know we keep talking about creating unique content, but what we haven't touched on is really owning that audience as well, which I think you're alluding to, Jeff, and just making sure that what you do own, whether that's that podcast content or the newsletter, like in my case, that is your proprietary content, and you're utilizing email marketing to create that rhythm and that flow that Martin talked about as well, with your own content, so that you're staying in front of your audience, not just showing up in their feed because the Instagram or TikTok decided that you're relevant today, just today.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you're trying to eventually get someone to something longer and deeper, and maybe that short form video, no matter the channel, is either designed to be the initial attraction or the reminder to come back to that.
Yeah, but short question. Would you recommend a B2B client, if we didn't have YouTube and YouTube Shorts, would you recommend a B2B client to start on TikTok without great agency to work on it, just with the team they had before?
I'll take it. This is an easy question. Yes. So you were mentioning harder places like education and fintech, where I also work in on a PR side. Explainer videos are really interesting on that platform, right? So if you can do very quick, interesting explainer videos that drive back to a business need, I think the question you have to ask yourself, right, if you're a B2B client is, can we do something that kind of changes people's minds or makes them think differently about our space, whether that's personal finance, whether that's education? Can it tie back to the brand? If it can't tie back to the brand, then I'm not doing it. But if I can find a way to do something attractive, then I'm going to try and plant that with certain people in the creator community.
Yeah, and I would echo that as well. We worked with 3 different nonprofit brands, educational brands, in the Boston area over the last 3 years, and had the privilege of helping them take their offline into the online during COVID, and did exactly what Jeff is talking about, using tools like Video Ask, where they were able to answer, real time questions, but turn those into engaging shorts where they could explain something or answer a question. For example, on FAFSA, how do I complete a FAFSA? That's a huge question. How do you break that down into 20 bite-size, very short videos? And you can do it. So really, I believe any industry has an opportunity to get their information out there. It's just thinking creatively how to best package that for your audience. And when you think about that, it just really goes back to, what are all of those questions that they've got in their heads, but they're not necessarily asking? Maybe they're Googling, maybe they aren't. And thinking about, when they come to you, what do they need to know? What is it that keeps them up at night, that makes them worry? And those are the questions that you could be answering across, any of these platforms, but really utilizing that video, like Jeff talked about, to create those engaging, memorable moments that are going to keep people coming back, because all of a sudden a light bulb in their head goes off and they're like, oh my God, they just get me. They understand exactly what I need.
I think one of the ancillary benefits also, Rebekah, along with what you're saying, you started to mention as far as owning your podcast, newsletter, and video, and things of that nature, is I was at a conference earlier this year that Sean Kennel was speaking of, who's quite big on YouTube. And one of the great ancillary benefits of everything we're talking about today is that by putting yourself out there and being in front of your audience, you're continuing to also build trust. You can be talking about your products, your services, the answer to solutions they're looking for, but at the same time, you're building trust with that audience. And trust is what's really going to matter when it comes time for them to make a decision.
Yeah, I think you accidentally answered one of the questions from the audience. Like, can we have banks, not fintechs, or insurance companies present on TikTok, not being cringy, not creating boring content that will be bailed by the algorithm, but actually giving like education and informative materials about what they do and what's really important for people there.
Yeah, Rebekah made a good point there just about it has to answer a common question that someone might have, right? If it does that, then it works. I would also say too, just from a B2B standpoint, and something I probably wanted to say earlier is, don't be afraid to do B2C tactics, even though you're doing a B2B function, because it can actually work. It just needs to tie back.
I like that advice. I often hear that when I'm searching for new things to experiment. Like at Brand, we were working with companies. Classical B2B, it's marketing, so it's a little bit lighter, I would say, that finance or insurance. But I'm often wondering, like, will it work? It's still human. Like, there are still people out there on the other side. So it's always this age-to-age communication, but the effect is not always the same. So it's I think it takes time to test and find the right way to do it also.
Yeah, and as a brand too, when you're working in those spaces, and if they're highly regulated, sometimes utilizing the creator community outside your company is a better idea because they're allowed more flexibility than you as the brand.
Jeff, you make a good point too, the differentiation between B2B and B2C, because it's like, I often wonder, right now I would be considered a consumer. I'm at home, I'm in my environment, but when I get in the car and go to work, am I now a B2B consumer? I've completely changed my mindset as far as what's going to attract me, what's going to engage me. Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this a lot in some of the projects that we've done where we just go, the end consumer will be B2B, but we can use a B2C tactic to find them, attract them, get them interested, and bring them back. It really doesn't matter how you get them as long as you get them. And so it's kind of just having a mindset of not limiting yourself when you're B2B.
Absolutely.
We have some really interesting questions coming up, but I think they are not a 1 minute type of questions. So I will leave them for the Q&A till the end, for the end. And I would like to switch to the community part, because communities is something I think we've heard for the last 10 years. Yeah, marketing should be more local, more focused around real people. Micro-influencers, trends that were here for a long time, but I think maybe because of COVID, maybe because of the, anti-globalization trends that are here and there this year. I think it's stronger and stronger, and we see communities playing huge role in marketing activities. Martin, I wanted to ask you, can you give some example or share some experience and some good practices in activating communities on the enterprise level? Is there such thing?
I think it's a little bit different. We look at engaging communities. A lot of times we turn to events. So we just finished what we call the Cox Smart Biz event in Virginia. We did that 2 weeks ago, where we invite local business leaders and chambers of commerce together and showcase new products, new services, things that are coming out, things that are becoming available that they may want to consider and use in the future. So I think those type of things. We've also did that previously in small business, where we did a program called Get Started. And it was very similar to like a live version of the Shark Tank. We took around to different cities. And so trying to engage communities around what their interest is and being able to try to find a way to add value to those communities, I think is key in those events.
Definitely. Jeff, do you have some examples from your PR experience with the communities? Whatever brand you've worked for can be your example, or even competition.
I have an interesting thought on community, right? So when you ask that question, you start talking about micro influencers, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a path here, but it'll come back. When I hear the question about micro-influencers and communities and everything over the last 10 years, I think there's a little bit of an exhaustion in that, right? Because we've talked about these things, we've dealt with these things, we've built these things. I think this 2023 is the most transformational year in building community, just because there will be so many social media platforms and other platforms that we normally use transitioning from mass user acquisition to condensing and trying to make profit, right? So these communities will actually condense. Well, actually, it's weird to think that we're going to get even more siloed and even more in an echo chamber in 2023, but I think we will. And so then it's really deciding in how to maneuver that, build community around that, because I think that shift will drastically change how we do things. If business changes, then we have to change. But I will allude to what Martin was talking about with Fox. Like they do a great job of tapping into certain communities. I mean, they sponsored the Shorty Award I won. They do a good job of getting, into inserting themselves in the conversation. I think that's the important thing when you're a brand, is finding the groups that you want to become part of your experience and doing that. There's been a lot of times when I work with brands where we're building 100-person influencer teams that are built on kind of reciprocal value, right? So you're saying, hey, we're going to loop you into the brand. We're going to give you something that you can point to on LinkedIn or whatever it is that you're involved with the brand. So it's something a little bit like an advisory council or an advisory board, but a little bit more involved. We can utilize you when we need to, a brand, to seed content. So that's helpful. So there's an exchange of worth there. And I think that's still going to be a very useful tactic regardless of platform. But I'm just kind of very curious about what happens when platforms condense how we build community if we're not trying to, as Rebekah talked about, put just as much content out there as possible.
As Martin said, offline events, like old school real life meetings. I think there's huge value in offline marketing as well. Harder to measure for sure, but definitely impactful these days, especially. Rebekah, I wanted to switch back to you and ask, do you feel or think or whatever that the brand can create a community like from scratch? Can we just catch up whatever trends are coming and just leaning into the communities that are already there? Or do you believe that a brand can create this trend for itself?
So from scratch, certainly, we probably, everybody here on this panel has probably done that in one way, shape, or form. And if you've got a presence, if you've got a product, you've got a service, you've got people that you are communicating with, you've already created a community, whether you know it or not. And community is really created doing exactly what we're doing here today, having conversations, talking about things that are interesting to all of us, sharing our unique likes. And I think this goes back to a previous conversation we were having about the ability to share more than just our product anymore. And that idea that if my target market is self-employed professionals, all I'm going to talk about is being self-employed. Well, that would be extremely boring because that's not who I am. And I guarantee that's not who my audience is either. They have a million different things that they're interested in, like me trying to, have plants that I consistently kill. It's just little things like that we all we all have these unique likes, these unique interests that pull us together. And that's what community is. So I would push back on the idea that communities have to be big in order to be successful for us. Really, what they have to be is a tight-knit, group of people that is like-minded, that is similar in their needs and what they're looking for. And then we have to be very transparent and open in what the idea behind that community is. So what are we there for? What are we looking to achieve? How are we going to get there? And I really believe that's another, big trend we've seen over the last several years that's going to continue as well, is just kind of breaking down that barrier of us versus brands or us versus them. It's all of us in this together. We're getting to where we want to go as a business because we're helping our customers get where they want to go. And communities really are a driving force behind helping that happen.
I think too, as marketers, right, we look at some of these places that lack community or connection. It's funny, it's like none of us, most marketers aren't building a ton of products, right? But I think you have the idea in the back of your head. If you look at fast fashion or direct to consumer online furniture, you look at, man, if you just built a 50% better community in there, you would probably build enough trust to get people to conversion. Because those are the areas where people struggle so much. You start to, it's almost like you can reverse engineer this and look at Reddit boards or just conversations online and go, ooh, should I buy that couch? Ooh, should I buy that shirt? And people aren't sure. And if you see like this constant conversation back and forth, you start to look at industries and go, ooh, you could jump right in there and probably steal some market share just if you built a better, tighter community that was a little bit more transparent. And that's I think the key to community is being transparent.
We have many clients at Brent. Sorry, Martin, just one I think that came to my mind is that many clients that we work with at Brand 4, they do exactly that. They monitor not their brand, not their competition. They monitor keywords related to their product or the situation where people use it, things they may like, find interesting, and then they jump in with the conversation, with the advice, just listening to people and seeing their insights. I think this is something extremely important when you want to build a community.
Ultimately, I think too, also it comes down to when you're talking about whether it's an online community or it's an in-person community, is it really comes down to the experience. I look at any of the social media conferences that I go to or any of the meetups or different things I engage with online, it's just as much about the experience when I'm in that chat room or when I'm at that event as it is about the content of either of those. And so that's the key thing. I'll find myself in things that I have kind of a sideline interest in, but I get involved in. It's a great community. Every time I go in there, the experience is really enjoyable, and I'll continue to go back to that and learn more just because of the experience a lot of times.
Totally.
Yeah, you have to keep people coming back. And for us, it's having lots of plans. That's why people will come back.
Exactly.
An open question, something we are also brainstorming a lot recently in terms of communities. Do you think content dedicated for the community should be something exclusive, like it should be something dedicated to this particular group that proven enough engagement and enough trust in your brand, or you would rather have a general content and just have the community out there without any particular channel or dedicated newsletter, like focused or unfocused? What would be your choice for the next year? Whoever feel like answering.
I think it really comes down to what your goal is, as far as what you're looking to utilize that community for. If you're thinking about going deeper with your audience. So yeah, if you've got a podcast or a website that you are providing, say, a course, and you want to go deeper into one particular topic, you could use communities for a more VIP experience, or maybe a roundtable discussion, maybe pulling in experts to talk further about a topic that a lot of people in your community have raised their hand and said, hey, I'm really interested in learning more about that. So communities can really be the ebb and flow within your business. They can be a terrific feedback loop as well to let you know that you're on the right track, that you're talking about the things that matter most, that they'd like to learn more about a certain topic so they could lead you into your next product. It just, again, like I said, it really depends on whether or not you're committed to showing up on a consistent basis, because communities are a lot of work to build, a lot of work to maintain, a lot of work to get off the ground. And that does come back to integrating them into your overall strategy. What are they there? What problem are they helping you solve? Are you struggling to communicate? Are you struggling to get in front of your audience? Are you struggling to get them to take action? There's just so many different reasons that we might create a community. So it's really thinking about how they fit into your overall business strategy, then into your marketing plan, and then how are you going to be able to execute upon that on a consistent basis without it feeling overwhelming and heavy and just like, a burden after a while, because that's something that, as we all know, is not sustainable and we're not going to, maintain. So I'm going to go back to a question you asked a little bit ago, which was, can you create or jump on a trend or create your own trend? And certainly you can, but I would always suggest that you stick with the things that are working, really, really double down on those things, and only start to branch out if it makes sense for your business, but also if you've got the bandwidth for that. Because I think that's another, misstep a lot of businesses and brands make, is getting overly aggressive or over eager about expanding into, say, these emerging markets, which are not tested, not necessarily. Sure, they may be working for somebody else, but it's not to say that that person hasn't put hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into building that community. So, again, community is just like any other pillar within, or spoke, if we want to talk about hub and spoke within, our overall strategy, and it's just figuring out how we're going to use it.
True. We have a very nice questions in the audience chat. So let me ask them. We have 10 minutes left, so I think we can still go through them. Maybe let's start with the one related to the communities. How important is to have a platform for your community? Is a mailing list enough, especially for B2B?
I was going to add to Rebecca's, and then I'll work into this. It's really the brand motivation or the marketing objective specific, right? So if you're trying to build trust, if that's your marketing motivator, then you're going to want to have something that's a little bit more user-led. If you're trying to be exclusive or build a luxury brand, then maybe you're limiting things to a specific list, right? So that will guide you in how you use, certain tools.
Martin, would you like to add something?
I would want to be more diversified than just a mailing list. I think, for myself, there's some people I open up their email every time I get one from some marketers. There's others that I've read it a couple of times. It really doesn't, fit what I'm interested in, and so I don't open that anymore. I wouldn't want to be solely dependent on that email list. So I would look at other areas, whether it be Facebook groups or podcasts, other things of that nature. But definitely make sure you're not just putting all your eggs in that one basket. And things change too rapidly also.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the bar, I think, Martin, it's harder to create sticky content with an email list than it might be with a podcast, just because of the nature of that. But yes, if you provide really great value and it's something that you want to click on every day, absolutely. But yeah, diversification.
And I think, it's funny, we keep talking about how things have changed and AI and all these things, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you go back and look at what works, email still works, video still works, podcast getting in front of your audience still works, content still works. It's all those basic things that still work. Different variations of them, but they all still work very well.
Yeah, Monica in the chat is asking, are the Facebook group still a thing? And I think exactly you answered that question. Yeah, like there are many groups that are actually working, and there are many that don't. And the channel is not the problem here. It's more about the content and the quality of the community we are building there.
Yep.
We have one more very important question about the KPIs for the social media channels. Will they evolve? I think it depends on the social media platforms we will be focusing next year. But let's focus to the one we have right now. Do you think like the risk of the vanity platform, the vanity metrics is growing, or we are more data driven than we used to be? Whoever feel like answering.
Yeah, I would hope that vanity metrics are a thing of the past. I think we're all pretty data driven at this point. It goes back to our planning and strategy and knowing why we're even showing up. What is the goal of social media? How is it helping us achieve those goals? So, just looking at it from that top level down of as an organization, what are we looking to achieve? How is sales helping us get there? Or how is marketing help us, get there? And then how does social media fit within that? So we definitely need to take a lot bigger view of how we're utilizing social media. And that's, leads me back to what I was talking about with just being very careful with where we're spending our time, how we're spending our time, because it is, as we all know, easy to lose hours in social media and just scroll, or, spend all day creating that one video that, oops, we didn't even really spend a whole lot of time researching. So now that we've created that video, we realize, oh, I don't even know that that's something I should be posting. So it's just getting really clear on, the why we're using those social channels, how we're showing up there, and then simplifying that when you think about aligning it to your overall brand strategy. And if you use that as your guiding light to say, this is what we're looking to achieve this year, and everything I do on social media is in direct alignment to that, all of a sudden it gets a lot easier to say yes, no to, certain projects, to certain content, to all of those ideas that pop up in our head on a daily basis. And make sure that we do stay very data driven with everything that we do on social media.
It's the short-term value of conversion and the long-term value of community building that we've been talking about here. And then I'll just be one little bit of cynical, and that is that it will still, on the brand side, come down to the CMO, and the CMO will still tell you, ooh, we want that vanity metric. And so you still might have to do that for some of these people in the audience. You'll know it's wrong, you'll know it's a bad idea, but you'll still have to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the vanity metrics, there's very few of them that you can't. If you told me I need 10,000 visits or 15,000 impressions next week, I can get that for you. That there's enough tools out there that you get that. So it doesn't really mean anything. It's not the right impressions or the right visits. So that's.
Yeah. And I think that's where understanding the difference between the two and being able to convince that CMO that, hey, this 10,000 views is going to get us absolutely nowhere. If this is a whole bunch of people that are uninterested in our product, our service, will never take action, and will never become a click through, will never become a sign up or a listener or a subscriber. So really helping them with that mind shift of what makes up an important community and who are those people. And it goes back to just talking about the, sometimes less is more, really going deep with the people that you have and those right people, as opposed to that idea of going wide with a huge group of people that may or may not be interested in really anything you have at all. Maybe just shows up there every once in a while because you're, funny or engaging, or you have some content that, was once interesting to them. So I think it's a very slippery slope too, if we are coddling and giving into the idea of vanity metrics, because then all of a sudden our neck is on the line when those things don't perform or don't happen, and they don't really understand the why behind.
And you definitely still want KPIs, but I would just make sure those KPIs are based on outcomes and outcomes that align with your overall business strategy.
For sure.
Yeah, it's about basically taking the time to try and advise, and this is whether you're agency or in-house, what those KPIs should be.
Exactly.
Guys, I have one last question that I would like to squeeze in. I think it's really like a nice closure for this discussion. Kevin is asking, what advice would you give to a new business trying it out in social media these days? Can we do a round like that? Jeff, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. know your competitors. I'll make this very quick. Know your competitors, spend a lot of time listening, figuring out, because again, we're asking this question, not knowing industry, not knowing a lot of the factors, but in generality, right? Know your competitors, do a lot of listening, and find the space that does not exist in that industry. Go there.
Martin?
I would say very similar. Know your audience, know who they are, know where they hang out, know what they're interested in, know what problems they face, and how you can offer viable solutions to them.
And Rebekah?
Yeah, and then I would just piggyback on that and say take it one step further, figuring out what your competition is doing and how you can do it different, better, more unique. You're really creating a moat around your business at that point, you know, future-proofing it because you are finding a better way to solve a real problem, especially when you are spending a lot of time listening. And I think that's a step we like to leapfrog because it just doesn't feel fun to stalk social media or different communities or our competitors, but it just gives you so much insight into how that audience is interacting with your competitors, what type of content there is really resonating with them, and then again goes back to how can you do it just a little bit better, a little bit different, and how can you inject who you are into that, because it seems so trite. And I know we've said it forever in marketing, but it's so true. Nobody is you, and nobody solves a problem exactly the way you do. So not being afraid to really lean into that as well and put your thought process, whatever that is, your process, your systemization, your bold thinking, your creative ideas, whatever your unique spin is, not being afraid to inject that into everything you're doing.
There's a common impulse, right, to rush into market. Rebekah alluded to this. Take the time, listen, figure out your lane, then go in.
Awesome. I think on this panel, most of our audience got here by Brand24. So I think they are masters in social listening and tracking their competition and trends. So I think they are totally capable of implementing that. Thank you very much, guys. We've spent that hour, I think, in the most effective and productive way we could. I'm super happy that we could have you and all of our lovely audience joining us here today. Those who haven't been here will get this recording on their email. I think you also will. You will be able to find it also on our YouTube. So stay tuned for further webinars, I guess, because it was a lovely evening. I would love to repeat that.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.